I used to be really bad at earning money. Early on, I was a junior financial planner, and my job was to help people manage their wealth. But my salary was so low that I started riding my bike to work to save money on gas, and I started a garden to save money on food. Now I run a bookkeeping agency that specifically serves creative businesses. This might sound strange coming from a former financial planner, but I'm not a fan of capitalism. Almost everyone I work with and know and love is an artist, including me. So I know the way the system is set up, freelancers and artists are too often way underpaid. They often feel like focusing on money will corrupt their creativity, or they think they're just not that good at making money anyway. But the truth is, we can be good at it. And in fact, we have to be, because our freedom is at stake. Our freedom to create, to influence, and to use the power of money to change the very exploitation that keeps artists broke to begin with. I'm not struggling anymore, and I've learned a lot since being a financial planner, and I just wanted to share
If you ask people what the three most important things that they carry are, across cultures and across gender and across contexts, most people will say keys, money and, if they own one, a mobile phone. The question is, why? So why are these things so important in our lives? And it turns out, from our research, that it boils down to survival. Survival for us and survival for our loved ones. So keys provide an access to shelter and warmth, transport as well, in the US increasingly. Money is useful for buying food, sustenance, among all its other uses. And a mobile phone, it turns out, is a great recovery tool. If you prefer this kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those three objects are very good at supporting the lowest rungs in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And in particular, it's the mobile phone's ability to allow people to transcend space and time. And what I mean by that is, you can transcend space by simply making a voice call, right? And you can transcend time by sending a message at your convenience, and someone else can pick it up at their convenience. And this is fairly universally appreciated. It turns out, which is why we have 3 billion people plus who have been connected, and they value that connectivity.
Before we start our tour of the club, I'll just run through some basic information about the facilities we have here, including recent improvements, and explain the types of membership available. Our greatest asset is probably our swimming pool, which at 25 metres isn't Olympic-sized, but now we've expanded it to 8 lanes, it's much wider. This means there are rarely more than a couple of people at a time in each lane. Unfortunately, there isn't space for an outdoor pool here, but the glass roof on the swimming pool is partly retractable, which means you can enjoy something of the open-air experience on warmer days. Our recently refurbished fitness suite has all the latest exercise equipment, including 10 new running machines and a wide range of weight training machines. Each member is given full training in how to operate the equipment, and there is always a trainer on duty to offer help and advice. Although we do have adult-only times after 6 and at certain times at weekends, children are well catered for. Older children continue to benefit from a wide range of tuition, anything from trampolining to yoga.
Students, when they're applying, really need to reflect, pause for a moment and think what it is that they're bringing to the course and where they want to go with it. And we want to see evidence that they do have some experience of thinking of telling stories visually. We don't need to see a great deal. They shouldn't panic about quantity, but they should reflect on what they have got that can show their talent and their creative ability. Ideally, we would like to see moving image work, but if an applicant has not had the chance to do that, then they're welcome to show us drawings, photographs, animations, any work that is thinking about telling stories over time.
With more and more car accidents attributed to distracted driving, it's become clear just how dangerous it can be to fiddle with your cell phone while behind the wheel. Now it seems more and more people are failing to safely use their mobile gadgets while walking. The number of distracted walkers injured seriously enough to be treated at hospital emergency rooms have more than quadrupled in the past 7 years, according to the Associated Press. That's not even counting the untold incidents of stubbing your toe or doing that little trip-run move across the sidewalk. These hospital cases are people who get hit by cars, fall off curbs, or even onto train tracks because they're too busy texting, surfing the web, or in some other way too distracted to watch where they're going. There were about 1,150 such incidents last year. There isn't any hard evidence yet that proves pedestrian gadget distraction increases the chances of pedestrian mishaps. Still, it's hard to argue with the anecdotal evidence available at the nearest street corner. Perhaps you've seen the video of the walker in California who's concentrating so hard on his mobile device that he almost bumps into a bear. Don't be that guy. The control room at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, late in the evening of August 5th Pacific Time, when word arrived that the Curiosity rover had landed safely on Mars. The 1-ton rover, which dwarfs all Mars landers that came before it, will now spend a planned 2 years exploring the Martian surface. The mission is expected to cost $2.5 billion. Curiosity's task is to investigate the inside of Gale Crater, where a giant mound of sedimentary deposits may provide evidence of a wetter, possibly habitable Mars billions of years ago. But first it had to survive an elaborate landing sequence, which appears to have gone smoothly. Curiosity landed on time and on target, and soon beamed back grainy photos of its wheels and its shadow. Given the car-like size of the rover and the challenges of landing on Mars, Curiosity's landing goes down as one of the greatest parking jobs in history.
Having a kid changes everything, from your sleep schedule to the status of that formerly spare room. The stable of bacteria that live in a woman's gut is also transformed when their host becomes pregnant. So finds research in the journal Cell. The study looked at women in Finland. The women's microbial makeup changed dramatically between the first and third trimesters. The array of microbes in the gut went from looking normal in the first 3 months of a pregnancy to resembling what's found in patients suffering from metabolic disease in the last 3. But some symptoms of that condition, like weight gain and slower sugar metabolism, can be beneficial to pregnant women, supporting energy storage that helps a fetus develop. Other symptoms, like inflammation, demonstrate that the immune system is functioning properly as a pregnancy comes to term. Scientists don't yet fully understand what brings about the changes in gut bacteria. Immune function is a suspect, but factors like hormonal signals aren't ruled out. The research suggests that other changes to the body, like puberty or old age, could also bring about microbial makeover.
Few cities had a worse location than St. Petersburg in Russia. In 1703, Russian Tsar Peter I began building a great European city for himself, St. Petersburg. There were three main problems with this city. Firstly, he decided to construct his beautiful capital at the mouth of a river. The land around the site was underwater most of the time and was either frozen or flooded. Over 100,000 construction workers died working in such difficult conditions. The second problem was the availability of construction workers. Few people lived in that area, and the high death rate meant that Peter needed to bring in a constant supply of replacement workers from other parts of Russia. Using the military service system, he ordered 40,000 men each year to go and work on his capital. The men were expected to provide their own tools and food for the journey, and with soldiers watching over them, and they were chained together to prevent them from running away. Illness was everywhere, and punishments went from whipping to death. The final problem was supplying the materials themselves. Whole forests were cleared to provide wood, hills flattened, and lakes filled in. Stone became so hard to find that Peter banned anyone else in Russia from using it. It was a truly impossible city to build and made him unpopular.
Long-term exposure to noise can lead to loss of hearing. The relative loudness of sounds is measured in decibels. Just to give you an idea of what this means, the sound of a whisper is 30 decibels, while a normal conversation is 60 decibels. The noise a vacuum cleaner makes is around 85 decibels. The danger zone, the risk of injury, begins at around 90. Continual exposure to sounds above 90 decibels can damage your hearing. Loud noises, especially when they come at you every day, all this noise can damage the delicate hair cells in your inner ear. Lots of everyday noises are bad for us in the long run. For example, a car horn sounds at around 100 decibels. A rock band at close range is 125 decibels. A jet engine at close range is one of the worst culprits at an ear-busting 140 decibels. The first thing to go is your high-frequency hearing, where you detect the consonant sounds in words. That's why a person with hearing loss can hear voices, but has trouble understanding what's being said.
Now, one of the workplace models I want to look at today is telecommuting. Done properly, telecommuting makes good business sense and companies can make huge savings on their overheads. It can also be a very effective lure to recruit quality employees, but companies need to plan ahead and create the right culture for it to work. It's not as simple as just giving everybody a laptop and sending them off to work from home. Management needs to look at training, security, and communication issues before any kind of telecommuting agreement is entered into. Now, a key part of making it work is ensuring that every employee, and that's whether they're at home or in the office, has equal access to resources and, of course, promotions. The last thing you want is to create a kind of us versus them scenario. The arrangement breaks down quickly if people start feeling isolated or limited in their chances of moving up the ladder if they aren't physically in the office. There has to be foresight right from the start in the hiring process. It's vital to screen employees carefully to determine who will be able to prosper working away from the office. Some companies give personality tests to prospective workers, and they do them online or over the phone to see if they're comfortable with that type of setup.
In my opinion, Pocahontas was a spy for the colonists. Yes, she served as a mediator between the British colonists and the Native Americans, but she was more of a spy. As you know, she even provided vital food supplies to the colonists. However, she didn't think of herself as a spy, and the colonists didn't trust her much despite her help. In a way, we could say she was a sad spy. Unfortunately, a war broke out between the Powhatans and the colonists. The colonists captured her and brought her to Jamestown. While she was in Jamestown as a hostage, she freely converted to Christianity and married John Rolfe. As we all know, this marriage brought the war to its end. What do you think? Was she a mediator or a spy? I believe she was a spy who played a role as a mediator.
Land animals move easily through air because air does not slow them down. Sea creatures, on the other hand, have to move through water, which is hundreds of times thicker than air. A sea animal has to push itself through water in order to move. Sea animals use many different ways to swim, creep, or glide through water. Fish are able to swim by bending their bodies into waves. They have flattened fins and tails that push against the water like oar blades, converting their body waves into forward movement. The size of a fish's tail contributes to its swimming speed. Small tail fins are found in slow swimmers like the eel. The medium-sized tail of the bass is linked with a medium to fast swimming speed. Long, pointed tail lobes like those on the marlin are found only on fast swimmers. Sea mammals like whales and dolphins swim in a very fish-like way, except for one important difference. Because their ancestors lived on the land, they developed tails that moved up and down. Whales and dolphins wave their tails up and down rather than side to side like fish do. The seahorse is a fish whose tail is not used for swimming at all. The seahorse uses its thin, coiled tail to attach itself to seaweed, like a monkey's tail holds onto a tree branch. Squids and octopuses move in a completely different way. They use a type of jet propulsion, shooting water out through a nozzle to force themselves along. And then there are the creatures that live on the bottom of the sea. Sea slugs, limpets, and whelks creep on a single flat piece of muscle called a foot. Ripples pass along the foot, which allows these animals to glide smoothly forward.
In the 19th century, there were several periods when large numbers of people moved from one place to another around the world. In many cases, people moved to another continent. These mass migrations were on a much larger scale than any previous migrations in history. One major movement was from Europe to the Americas, Australia, and Africa. This migration of Europeans involved around 60 million people over 100 years. Another mass migration was from Russia to Siberia and Central Asia. Another was from China, India, and Japan to Southeast Asia. These large movements of people were made possible by the new, cheap, and fast means of
When you first examine something under a microscope, say a leaf from a plant, you're amazed at how much detail there is, and it's detail that you simply cannot see without magnification. And what you can see with the naked eye becomes suddenly huge under the lens. How big everything looks is astonishing, but it's also amazingly intricate. Suddenly, it's as if another world has opened up in front of your eyes, and you think, hey, I hadn't realized that something so small, so tiny, could be so
A new study suggests that it takes nearly twice as much energy to walk on your toes than it does to land on your heel. Humans are among a small handful of animals that tend to strut heel to toe. Chimps and other apes do it, as do bears, but most critters bounce on the balls of their feet, think cats and dogs, while others trot on their toes, like horses and deer.
It's money well spent for them. By age 2, children may already harbor preferences for certain brands, and kids under 6 can often associate brands with specific products, such as McDonald's. Here's how powerful the McDonald's brand is, according to a study just published in the August issue of the journal Archives of Pediatric and Adolescent Medicine. Preschool kids were given the exact same food in either unmarked packages or in McDonald's packaging, but the kids, all between 3 and 5 years old, said they liked the taste better when the food looked like it was from McDonald's.
All of our accommodation is within a walking distance to the academic buildings. Environmental friendliness is a new category in which campuses are competing. History is not the simple collection of dates and events. I've always dreamt of owning my own horse. You need to concentrate on passing your driving test.